of the Finance Committee to order. The date is the 13th of June. The time is 3:01. With us today, we have Alderman Tolliver, Alderman Bade, Alderman Warman, Alderman Bug, and myself, Alderman Franco. First item is 24-0422, approval of the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting held on May 30th, 2024. Do you have a motion?
Moved.
We have a motion by Alderwoman Bade. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Tolliver. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, anybody from the public wishing to speak?
No, we do not.
Okay. Then for the media of the agenda, we're going to skip because of scheduling concerns. So we're going to go to the last one first, which is 24-0453. Matters related to the information of making of a recommendation as to fixing of compensation of elected officials pursuant to the Local Government Officer Compensation Act.
Good afternoon, Alex Voigt from the Mayor's Office. This is just an information-only item. Staff is seeking guidance from the Finance Committee on whether or not to proceed with a formal process to review and potentially make recommendations regarding the mayoral and aldermanic salary. The last time this process was undertaken was 2020, and it was implemented in 2021. This opportunity comes up every 4 years. So this is staff making the request, looking for guidance as to whether we move forward with some sort of study or formal process, or if the committee wishes to leave things status quo.
Comments from the committee? Alderwoman Bade.
Thank you, Chairman. Alex, do we have any kind of study for elected officials, like Hay study or any other kind of?
So that's a great question. The process has looked a bit different. There have been different iterations. Many years ago, there was a special compensation committee that was led by the Chamber of Commerce. It did have, I believe, an aldermanic representative on it as well. It has come through the Finance Committee. It has been based on staff recommendations and research, but we do have the ability to have a market study done by an outside agency if that's how the council wishes to proceed. That is an option as well.
Okay.
I will say the last time, I apologize, in 2020, it was done all in-house through the CFO, legal counsel, and staff. There was staff from Human Resources, and I believe the Mayor's Office did some research as well, so it was a collaborative effort.
So I got a couple of comments. 2 cycles ago, I was the chair of the compensation committee. Last time I went through finance, so I had chaired it again. So what we had done is we looked at a number of different communities, practices. And when I say communities, it would not only for municipalities, but maybe for townships, for like Kane County, what they get in compensation. Because at the end of the day, what we like to do is have something fair and equitable, but we can't be I wouldn't think we'd want to be way over or way under. We even looked at the city of Chicago, which is a tough one to figure in because you really have to do some scratching and melting down based on 2.5 million people to 200,000. So I would ask that we do similar procedure again, collect data. I have a whole bunch of data here, and I can actually give you this to Alex because it's all good stuff, but it's older. So if you could take a look at that, and I think in addition, if we want to do the Hay study, which is not a bad thing, I don't know that they do elected officials, but it would be interesting to see. And then once we start getting the data, then we can start taking a look at where we stand, reference others, going forward, what we want to look at, because there are so many variables that we can look at. You could say our inflation rate, we gave ourselves like a 3%, but over the last couple of years, combined, it's been like 12 or 13%. You play catch up. So there's different ways to go. So we're going to decide that, but I think it'll be certainly easier if we have the data in front of us that basically what this is, and I'll give this to you if you want to take a look at it. Sure. And then we can start picking it apart and see where we want to be. But I will tell you right now, based on what I've looked at, where we are as a municipality compared to other municipalities, when I say Elgin and Joliet and stuff like that, we're pretty good. As we should be because we have more people than them, more residents, but we're pretty good. So reference that. But that's passed. I don't know where they're at now, so that's why I think we'd want to take a look at that. Any other comments or questions from the committee?
And so with the committee's direction, we'll begin that process and come back with information and then some recommendations. And if the committee ultimately does decide to recommend changes to the ordinance, our goal is to have that completed by, at the latest, September of 2024, because we do have I believe it's a 6 months, it's
180 days.
6 month period before
Yeah.
the new council, before the elected officials begin their next term.
Right. So, and so for my colleagues, they may not know this, but when you vote on this, it can't be for anybody that's going to be basically still an elected official from that term. So it'd have to be 4 years from now when everybody's gonna have another election cycle, so it doesn't, so you can't have it, so I'm still an alderman, I voted for my salary, that type of thing. It's gotta be, if I get elected, it's my salary, if I run again, but not for the term that I'm in now. So that'd be, so we're through 2026, this would be starting in 2027, the new period.
But
Right.
for the mayoral, that last escalator was 2024. So it would be beginning in 2025, but the alderman, it runs,
Okay.
the current schedule
Okay.
runs through 2026. So it would be 2026 and beyond for
Right.
the alderman.
Right, okay. Any other comments?
Yes.
Alderman Bug.
I appreciate your time frame. In the past, when we looked at this, we tried to factor in trying to complete it. Of course, we did this in Zoom, which
Yep.
was a lot of fun. We tried to complete it so it would not impact the time frame on when candidates were passing petitions. That time frame is 90 days back from filing. So I believe that time frame is end of August.
Yes.
So if we could, and I had a discussion with Rich about that, yeah, we could put the pedal down and try and move on this, and that, and all those residents who are looking to possibly throw their hat in and want to get involved as being a candidate, they know once they start passing petitions what they're kind of looking at, so.
Sure. And we can begin providing regular reports following this meeting now that we have, it seems, consensus to commence with the study. So we can commit to having regular reports so we can move it along with the goal of finishing it sooner.
Can we just get clarification? You want us to, so we'll pick up the ball and run with it, but you want a third party, Hay or somebody similar, or, so that's why we need some clear direction and consensus, and we'll start tomorrow.
I would say yes, because we never used a Hay study before, and I don't know why, because we use it for other staff, but,
And we've inquired just
Right.
proactively to them to see if this is something they would undertake, but we know there are other compensation firms out there, but we would
Right.
have to reach out to them, but we did reach out to Hay, just,
right.
we haven't heard back, but we
Right.
should hear back.
I think it would be good to throw that, we have, and my feeling is, we have a good blueprint. We've done this a couple of cycles now, so I don't think, once we can collect the data, this is not gonna take a long time for us to figure out where we're at. Because I think we're right in the ballpark, the sweet spot right now, so I think it's gonna be a little tweaking involved. But having the extra data, you never know what's gonna surprise you one way or the other. But right now, I will tell you right now that we're in the ballpark, if not at the top of the ballpark, for everybody but Chicago and the state of Illinois, which seems fairly appropriate based on what we do. So I think we're pretty good right now. And Alex, I will give you this, and you can take a look. Because there's a lot of good stuff in there, but it's older. It's just older.
Carl.
Yes, Alderman Buck.
Thank you, Chair. Forgive my memory. I remember we discussed Hay in Zoom, and I thought they kind of came back. It wasn't that they couldn't do it, just with COVID and staffing and all kinds of things happening.
Yeah.
It just was not going to
I
happen
believe you're
in a
right.
time frame that we could get the information and make a decision, so.
We'll confirm that.
Yeah, we just had to go a different route.
Yeah,
last
sure,
time.
and that's fine. I mean, I think we're pretty stable right now. I don't think there's gonna be any great movement one way or the other, I think, when we're done. Because I think we did a good job the last two cycles, that's why. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we will be back at the next Finance Committee with a report in terms of process and timing, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Thanks. All right, then we'll go to the top. First item, 24-0345, resolution authorizing the city to accept a grant award of $1 million over 5 years from the USDA Forest Service Urban and Community Forestry Grant with no matching funds required to improve Aurora's urban forest in USDA-approved areas.
Good afternoon. Julie Franchino, grant writer for the city of Aurora. You've heard about this grant before. This was a project sponsored by the USDA Forestry Service called the Inflation Reduction Act, Urban and Community Forestry. Just Urban and Community Forestry Grant. Sorry, I thought I was forgetting a word. We are about ready to finalize that agreement with the USDA, and we require city council approval of the final agreement. So this project will do things such as tree inventory, development of an urban forest management plan, planting new trees, helping our city staff with tree trimming, and some community outreach and education activities related to trees and forestry.
So, the $1 million is not just for purchasing of trees, it's purchasing trees, education, maintenance of it, the whole part, right, so we use it for that. And USDA-approved areas, can you elaborate on what that really means?
Sure. So when we initially submitted this application, we had intended for the project to cover the entire city, and that was allowed in the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity. USDA, for reasons they did not explain, once they evaluated the proposals, they chose to only fund projects in areas that are designated by the government as a climate and economic justice area. So there's a map, it's called CGEST, or an opportunity zone. So those census blocks that fall into one of those two federal designations are the areas that we will be serving with this grant.
Okay. And then who determines, like, if an alderman, so for example, the way we do it now, if I have people in my ward, the 5th ward, that want trees, they put in a request, I might put in a request for some other areas. How does that work with an alderman, the communication between what an alderman might want, if he has one of those areas, versus the way we're doing it now?
So we do that now, as you mentioned, we already supply trees. These dollars would be to supplement that, so that process will remain unchanged. There will have to be some administrative things that we do internally to make sure that we are allocating the dollars, you know, whether it's the city pays for the tree or the grant pays for the tree. So we don't really anticipate much of a change in process in terms of what the public sees, but on our end, with making sure that we pay for the trees in the right place with the right pot of money, that's where the change will come in.
Will there be a map that each alderman can have of the potential areas that would be applicable in their ward?
Yes.
Okay.
There's already an interactive map on the city's GIS site.
Okay,
It's
all
called
right.
Urban and Community Forestry, or maybe it's just called Forestry Map, but it's on the dashboard if you
Okay.
scroll. So yeah, that's available and that will be updated and maintained throughout the project.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I do.
Alderwoman Bay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'm sure this is a very appreciated grant, so thank you for that, Julie. I just wanted to know, like, if there, why are these departments listed twice, like community affairs, grant forestry? I didn't understand that part.
Are you referring to the
Revenue
actual
accounts.
narrative document
Yeah.
that was attached? So the grant application required all of the duties, like they required a timeline and having that assigned to a particular department or person. So I believe the table you're referring to is just saying who's going to be responsible for that particular activity under the grant. So the community outreach activities, we have community outreach that is intended for the general public, and then we have community outreach activities that are intended for youth. So the ones for the general public are going to be under the Community Affairs Department. The youth activities will be with the Community Services Department or Youth Services Division. Does that
The reason I
clarify?
asked is, like, community affairs is listed and then community affairs grant forestry. So same for youth and youth grant forestry, street and street grant forestry. So the same department, is it a subdivision? Like, I didn't understand why they're listed 2 times.
I'm not sure. I would have to look at the document.
Okay.
I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
We can talk up.
Yeah, I don't know what
No problem.
specific reference you're referring to.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Alderwoman Bay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bug. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item is 24-0354, resolution authorizing Director of Purchasing to purchase video conferencing hardware and services from Burwood Group Incorporated, Chicago, Illinois, for a total amount not to exceed $66,640.53.
Good afternoon, Chairman Franco. Jeff Anderson, City's Deputy CIO. This resolution is requesting upgrades to the Chiefs Conference Room to make it more compliant with all the different technologies that the police department has to work with when they're conferencing with other agencies, and that includes not only Teams but Zoom and Web Connect and all the other tools we've seen that all the other agencies use, and then as well as setting up a Teams environment very similar to what's in the mayor's office and what's in the conference room that's right behind us here, so they can have conferences in their room as well without having to travel to different locations, bring vendors in or bring in their employees in. So that's at a high level.
So this will be, in essence, saving us money, transportation, people driving from place to place, time and for all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, employee travel time is definitely for the water department for sure. There are, I understand the difficulties and all the bug with Zoom that we had, but there are some upsides to those tools as well, quite a number of those. In the case of the police department, we've kind of, over time, the history there is we've sort of piecemealed in the various different technologies as they come in, and it's at times quite difficult to use, and IT's generally involved to get a meeting started there, and that's a difficult thing. So what we're looking to do is make that completely user driven, that they'll integrate with all the tools that they need. So that's a fourth of the old equipment out of there and bringing in a new simplified solution. And if you've seen them, they're usually a touchpad that you can join the meeting right there from the table.
Other questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to
Second.
approve by Alderman Bay, second by Alderman Bug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 24-0418, a resolution approving the purchase of bulk rock salt in the amount of $73.90 per ton from Morton Salt Incorporated for the Division of Street Maintenance under the DuPage County Joint Purchasing Agreement bid for the 2024-2025 winter season.
All right, good afternoon. Tim Forbes, Superintendent of Streets. This is one of 3 bids that we come through. Normally it's just 2 per year. We normally split our salt order in half, so we got 2 different vendors and hopefully 2 different trucking firms, so we don't have a problem with deliveries coming in. This year we'll have a 3rd one, which has nothing to do with this, but just so you know, there'll be a 3rd one to fill that new salt dome. They came in great. This is the lowest price we'll see in 5 years for salt, so it's very, very nice to see that it keeps going down little by little.
Is, because last winter was pretty good, did we, have a lot of inventory left over because we probably didn't use as much as maybe normal
We didn't
winters?
use our full contract.
Right, okay.
We did what we had to, the minimum, which put our both domes to a maximum. But it's not like normal where I've used it and my dome's at 1 quarter and I got to refill before the
Right.
next winter. We're sitting on 2 full domes right now, so
Okay.
it worked out really well.
Good, good. Questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Alderwoman Bay, second by, was it Alderman Talver? Alderman Talver. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 24-0446, a resolution authorizing approval and execution of a lease agreement between the City of Aurora and the Aurora Metropolitan Exposition Auditorium and Office Building Authority for the lease of space at 5 East Downer Place, Suite G, Aurora, Illinois.
Good afternoon, Alex Alexander, Chief Management Officer. So before you is resolution to authorize approval and execution of a lease agreement between the city and ACA, the Aurora Metropolitan Exposition Authority, for the space which will be known as the Stolbein Theater at 5 East Downer. So as you recall, in 2021 and attached to your item was the original license agreement that allowed for ACA to begin the process that has gotten us today to where we're soon to open the theater on July 10th. That license agreement called for a subsequent lease agreement. And so working with our law department and ACA, you have the lease before you. The term is for 20 years. There's some language in there for renewable by either party. And so we also have all the necessary risk management and legal requirements similar to what we would do with any other tenant in a city building. So they have done some extensive work in there under the license agreement. It's really been an amazing transformation, and thanks to the city council, other items related to this are all coming together nicely towards July 10th. And Tim Rader's here in case there are any other questions. But really, we are looking for approval of this lease so that we can have it in place prior to the theater opening.
So it's a 20-year lease, and they're paying the lease up front at $1 a year. So are we taking a check for that $20, or are we doing cash? Because that's really what it comes out to, am I correct? Is that really what we're looking at?
Correct.
That was a joke.
Correct.
All right, so, but those numbers are correct. $1 a year, 20
That is
years,
correct.
payable up front. Okay. Questions or comments from the committee?
Well, I don't see, if we went against this, we would have thousands of $1 million quartet fans banging on our doors. So this is a necessary action, and everything that's going forward, every time the email comes through that another session is sold out, is just, warms the heart. So I'm looking forward to this going forward.
Questions or comments from anybody else?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion to approve by Alderman Warman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item is 24-0451, a resolution authorizing the approval of a development agreement between the city and C1 Chicago Aurora LLC, providing reimbursements for public improvements that benefit the property located at 2725 Bilter Road.
Again, Alex Alexandru, Chief Management Officer. I am pinch hitting for Mr. Debo. I was part of the team that negotiated this development agreement with Cyrus One. So what you have before you is a development agreement which would provide reimbursement for public improvements that benefit the property located at 2725 Bilter Road. So not only did the city expend public funds for public improvements at the site, but this also would provide for payment of a public works impact fee, development impact fee, in connection with the Cyrus One development, which was recently approved by City Council. Some of the background: in 2008, the city worked closely with IDOT on what is now known as the Eola interchange. There were substantial funds allocated to facilitate the development of that interchange. The goal at the time, and for many years after, was to induce some new economic development on what turned out to be both sides, so north and south, so to speak, as that design of that interchange kind of bisected about 100-acre parcel into 60 to the north and approximately 30 to the southwest. As you're aware, on the 60 acres, the city pivoted from that economic development focus, and approved and under construction is the very large first building of several buildings for the Edge data center development. So we looked and contemplated the progress or lack of progress and interest we had on the 30 acres, which is the subject of the Cyrus One development, which was recently approved, and sought both the reimbursement for public funds as well as the payment of the public works development fee, impact fee, in connection with the Cyrus One development. So this RDA calls for the approval and subsequent reimbursement of the city for expenditures made Also in anticipation or in lieu of that economic development, which will not now take place, along with the time value of money from the city expenditures back in 2008. And in Exhibit A, there is some breakdown of the expenditures in Section F. And again, these were made in large part to not just implement the interchange, but the interchange was meant to spur economic development. So $8 million in 2008 was spent for the right-of-way acquisition. The value of that expenditure in 2024 is $13,440,000. A little over $500,000 in 2015 was spent for utility work. The value of that expenditure today, in today's dollars, is about $764,500. And then finally, there were 2008 expenditures of soft costs related to right-of-way improvements. That was $787,500. So you take that to today's value, that's $1.323 million. In addition, ultimately, this triggered $35 million in DuPage County and State of Illinois investment for the construction of these improvements. So this was a very significant development at the time. Again, unfortunately, despite best efforts, both parcels that we talked about did not come to fruition for the anticipated economic impact. So we are recommending this development agreement, which will bring back to the city significant reimbursement, not to mention the ongoing, similar to what we talked about with the edge development, the presence of the Cyrus One expanded data center will bring the city property taxes, utility taxes, some high-end jobs, and very little impact from a traffic perspective, no impact, obviously, like a residential might have on the school district. And so we also are getting full reimbursement for the public improvements. We have Russ Whitaker here from Cyrus One. We have John Murphy, our counsel, who advised as well, if there are any questions.
I want to say, and I'm not familiar with how these deals go down, but $15,527,500 we're getting back. Today's dollars versus what we paid in the past, that sounds like a pretty good deal for us. I mean, I don't know how those normally go, but I think that was
I would
good.
have to correct you. It's actually a total of 16 million.
Oh, okay.
But it's broken up by that number you said, 15 million.
527,500.
Correct, and then the impact fee, the public works
Okay.
impact
Right.
fee makes up the difference. So
Sure.
it's a total of 16.
Right. It's, I mean, I can't comment from a historical perspective. It seems like it's a good thing for us. We got our money back plus for inflation, so I'm very, it sounds really good for us. So I'm happy about that, because it's a nice thing. What I do have to question, so when we get that money, where does that go for the future? Does that go, which fund does that go into?
So we are still, obviously there was a process to go through here. We're not being presumptive in any way. We want to make sure we get city council approval of this. The money initially will come to the city. It's unencumbered. In other words, it doesn't have to go back into any proprietary fund. And then the administration is working hard internally to figure out how that money will be budgeted and allocated.
And
So we don't have that answer yet.
Right, but we'll have that at some point down the road.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you. Questions or comments from the committee? Alderman Bade?
No question.
Okay. Alderman Bug?
Yeah, just quickly, I appreciate this. And for everyone, all of the improvements that came out of this, the person who sat in my seat 2 times ago was holding this project up because he wanted South Eola Road widened. And that was his effort at that time to hold this up. So thankfully, the rest of the council wanted this to move forward, and South Eola Road was also widened. So all of the improvements up and down Eola Road took place. And we're better for it.
Alderman Lash, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just saw in there that the impact fees for the school district were waived in the fire protection district. Have they been notified? I'm not sure. I'm assuming that's District 101 or 204. Did I read?
I'll have to check on notification. They will be notified if the council approves this, but neither of those applies to this situation. That's why they're waived.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering is the legal, there's no legal requirement that
No,
we.
sir, not in this particular circumstance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the committee?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Alderman Mormon. We have a second by Alderwoman Bade. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 5-0.
Thank you.
I believe we're at the end of our agenda. Is there anything else to come before the Finance Committee today?
Motion to adjourn.
Hearing none, I have a motion to adjourn by Alderwoman Bade, second by everybody else, Alderman Bug. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And we are adjourned at 3:32. Thank you.
Thank you for the history
Yeah,
lesson.
yeah, the